Perception. Chapter 3 in cognitive psychology is perception. Now, we experience the world through perception. We do not experience the world directly through sensation. Sensation is going to be just those feelings and imprints that your body remembers as long as it gets to the brain. Once it gets to the brain actually turns it into a story and filters out most of that because most of the things that we're experiencing aren't relevant to survival. And the brain likes quick, fast, easy, and survivable. So we add up these sensations to create a meaningful experience, and that meaningful experience is what we call truth. And each of us has a totally separate, different truth, though how we reconcile our truths is to compare our experience with other people's experiences, and if they're similar, then we can agree upon them. Which means our perception can be a little bit different from other people, but it's probably going to be, if we're not entirely out of the ordinary and abnormal, probably pretty close to what other people are also perceiving. Our brain tells us a story. Often that story isn't accurate, but the brain is only lying to us to keep us from getting killed. Oh no, I'll have to edit that out. The brain is only lying to us so that we don't die. One of the major words in perception is called Gestalt. Gestalt is a German word that means worldview. It means we accept the environment with a holistic worldview, whereas opposed to reductionists and structuralists who test those sensations, the vision, the hearing, the processing. Gestalt takes the perception of a whole, because that's how the brain interprets it, as a story. And the brain makes a lot of connections that wouldn't normally happen in real world. For example, is this a dog, or is it just a set of dots moving around in formation? This is what we call apparent motion, because these dots aren't really moving. What's going on is we are seeing a sequence of separate pictures where the dots are in just a little bit different place. If you've ever seen a GIF, you know what we're talking about here. Not actual movement, just a set of pictures. And because our eyes only remember about a 24th, 19th, 20th of a second, you can, as long as you're displaying those images at a quicker rate than 19 per second, mostly like 30 is what this is going to be running, 60 if you're playing a really high-powered video game, your brain's not going to notice the individual frames, it's going to notice it as pictures, moving, motion pictures, moving pictures, movies. Have you seen this picture before? Do you see the young girl or do you see the old lady? If you've seen this enough, if this started you off with this picture enough, then you probably recognize both of them. You can answer. Dave's in the room.
I see the young girl right now. I do not see the old lady yet.
Do you not see the old lady?
No,
so this would be her nose right here, and this would be her chin and the mouth, and she's wearing this.
Oh, I see it now.
There it is.
I do see it now.
You do.
One in the middle.
Which line's the longest? One in the middle. You should have been seeing this since you were like in 3rd grade.
Yeah, I know.
And if you've seen it long enough, you'd know that they're all the same size.
I know, it's like, I always liked this one because it's there.
It's there.
It's this one.
That does throw me off.
Perception is a process based on what's been shown to you to be correct in the past. This is called the law of good continuation. Because this is a two-dimensional picture, it's not really there, but the frame that has the most uninterrupted silhouette is going to be what looks like it's closest to you. If the vectors are close enough, your brain will piece this story together to make it look like she's walking on a tightrope, when really that's just drawing on concrete. She's really in no danger, not in this class. Your brain will automatically create groups and grouping. It'll take, because of the colors dots, it'll group those as 4 sets of 4. It will combine the 3 sets of 2 instead of just saying that's 6. Continuity, your brain will actually just create the story that there's 2 lines crossing there. And whenever you see a box that's almost closed, it will just say that's a box. And there must be something in the way of it. This is because the human brain can see things, can know things are there even when they're not visible, which is something we're having a really hard time getting computers to do. If something isn't sensorily there for the computer to see, it has a tendency to forget that it's even there anymore. Yeah. Also, the oblique effect. The human brain loves to see vertical and horizontal lines. We're trained for it. If it sees a line that isn't vertical or horizontal, especially a bunch of them, it will assume your head is just tilted and the lines really are vertical or horizontal. It's you that's not. These are all the stories that the brain tells you. Light should come from above. If you see something that's lit from below, we consider that to be kind of creepy. Disney shows use that a lot. This is Thomas Bayes. His idea was that we estimate truth based on prior experience and how similar this experience is to that last experience. If that last experience had the same kind of setup as this experience, and it turned out a certain way, we'll probably think that this way is going to go the same. We don't know that that's really a picture of him, but we do know where he's buried. The brain loves to predict, and it does not like to be wrong. So even if it comes across something that it doesn't expect, it may actually see the things it's expecting instead. And Adelson's checker shadow illusion. Is the color in box A the same as the color in box B? Normally you wouldn't think so, because in the real world, things in the shadows are usually a different color than the things that in the sunlight. But in this instance, boom, they are the same color. This is your brain just creating a story, and in the wild it would be perfect, it would be fine, it would keep you alive. In the laboratory, when you've got people there showing that the brain is making a mistake, that's when the brain can be fooled. Until you see this enough that you actually just don't believe it anymore. Your brain does not like to be fooled for very long. Do the tracks go into the distance? Vanishing point illusion. No, it's a two-dimensional image. It's just flat. But so is the back of your eye. Your retina is a curved two-dimensional feature. And the curving actually does help us with the three-dimensional processing, because you get a little bit of a distance issue there. But the picture in between the two eyes is slightly different. And we use the difference in those pictures using just about the fastest part of the brain to analyze the difference between those two pictures and determine how far away something is. You've also got an optic nerve here that goes through the back of the retina. And because it has to pass through the retina, we all have a blind spot. And that blind spot's going to be a little bit higher than the horizontal plane off to the outside. But because the picture on the back of the retina is upside down, where it passes through, the optic nerve is actually below on the retina. Human perception, the brain, tells us a story. The brain puts together this story. And human perception can track elements even when they disappear, which is something computers are having a really hard time to do. Computers have sensation. Computers do not have perception yet. We're working on it. In 2004, DARPA, the United States Black Ops Department, created a grand challenge. And the challenge was to create a computer that could see and keep track of things in real time. Cars that disappear, could it remember it so that when it reappear, going at a certain vector? What happened was, at a 150-mile track, the winning car went 7.5 miles. Now, in the last 15 years, we've come a long way. But it's still questionable whether those self-driving cars are really effective or not. We use them, but there's, There's two kinds of processes you need to know, and it's not this slide. There's bottom-up processing and there's top-down processing. Bottom-up processing starts with the sensations and builds to a worldview. So you get pricked in your hand, you find out who pricked you in the hand. The other one is top-down, where you start with what you think should happen, and then you look for clues to make sure that that's what you think happens again. The brain is actually better at top-down, because it already assumes that what's going to happen is happening. Whereas computers are better at bottom-up, because they have to start from the sensation every time. But we're starting to work a little bit towards the middle on that. This is a set of fMRIs, functional MRIs, where they take magnets, line up all the water molecules, release them, and track to see where they go. And the water, being blood, goes to parts of the brain that we assume are being used the most. And what's going on here is that we have these things, we probably have these things, called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons make observational learning possible. Not all animals can learn by watching other animals do something. What's going on is, this is an fMRI of someone who's actually reaching for something. You've got the left lobe, probably doing it with the right hand. Left lobe hired up, again, left. And there's just a lot of activity around the outside. That would be parietal, where the touch center is going on. Back here's got visual going on, so they're looking at what they're touching. Observed reaching, this is just someone watching the other person. There's not as much activity in the motor neural complex, so they're not actually doing the reaching. However, we do have some of the touch going on, and we do have some of the vision going on. They are actually watching, and because this is only happening on the right side, only the left brain's active on this. On the observer, both sides of the occipital complex are watching this going on. And you've got a little bit on the touch and memory nodes up at the top. If you're just imagining reaching, then you've got a little bit of the motor, what should be feeling, and a little bit on the sides. But nothing going on in the visual cortex, because they're not actually observing it. But you do have the same kind of thing going on at the top of the motor. And there's just a lot less going on at the medial stage. If you were not watching this, these parts of the brains would not even be lit up. This is, in fact, someone learning. Now, mirror neurons aren't in one place. Mirror neurons are going to be, if they exist, all over the brain in different areas so that we can learn all kinds of different observational activities, physical, mental, or, even dreaming, I would expect. Copying facial functions, copying emotions, making sure that other people are feeling the same emotion. Because the idea is, if we can learn from someone else without having to do it, and we can operate the same parts of the brain, maybe not as much, we actually get better at something, even if we're just thinking about doing it. Important for human cognition. Not so important for sharks. Next chapter will be attention. There's the link. Go see it. I can't tell you what it's going to be, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. See you in attention.